Oh yeah! Hey guys, it's Carl Crew and the Fourth Watch Files, and I'm here tonight. We're for part 2 of Giants, and we got a really good response from the Giants one, and we have so much so much other information. So let me bring on Brian here. Oh yeah, come on, Brian. Come on, Brian. What are you doing? Come on. There we go.
What's up? How's it going?
Welcome back, brother.
What's
But
up?
there's so much to cover. I mean,
yeah.
the first one went crazy, and people just want to know. And there's so much information. So we want to be covering some archaeological stuff first, and to show how prolific this is. The cover up of this it's been covered up so much, and really it's been in our faces the whole time. And that's how they love to hide things, is in plain sight. I mean, you've seen some of these megalithic structures in films, Raiders of the Lost Ark, on all kinds of historical shows about Egypt and everything, and you don't even know what they are. So we're gonna bring in some images and start talking about them. So here we go, baby.
Let's go.
All right. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So this is a really interesting image. This one is over in Egypt. But the thing that I'd like to point out here in this image is the doorways. Now obviously they're giant sculpted images, but there's this like cut right in the side of the mountain, and it's cut in straight into the side of the mountain. But the thing here is the doorways are so large at some of these structures here, and people like don't understand, like when you create a doorway, when any animal creates a doorway, you only make the doorway as big as the animal has to be to get through it. If you make a doorway any bigger, then other predators and other issues are free to come
animals in. Yeah.
Exactly. So why would you make the doorways these big on the structure? And that's
look at that little tiny man going in the doorway.
Yeah, it's a person going in there. And then yeah, one of the next images, it has the same kind of concept thing going on here. If you want to show that one. Yeah. And again, this is
Petra.
Yeah, this is Petra, very famous place. This is a phenomenal site. But again, look at that tiny little person right there standing and at these doorways. And this doorway is massive. And you got to wonder, and it's cut like straight in the side of a mountain, like with precision cut. And it's just such a phenomenal structure that people are we take for granted, and we're like, oh, that's just normal. They just somehow did that, and that's just totally fine.
And what do you think it's dated to?
I don't recall offhand the dating to that.
I don't think people really know.
It's pretty long. Yeah, maybe they probably don't. I mean, I don't think anybody really actually knows. I'm sure there's some people that give these educated guesses, but like everything in science, everybody thinks they know and they give this answer, but the truth is no one knows anything.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Here we go.
Yeah. This is another megalithic structure we have here, and it's very well known. But these blocks, there's a person on those pillars. In between those pillars, you can see a person standing there. But we don't know exactly how they built this, or moved these blocks, or got this structure there. Like some of these pillars are so massive. It's funny because the interesting part about how these blocks are moved, there's a video, you can look it up. It's about these you'll see these bulldozers trying to move a single limestone block that is similar in size to that.
Incredibly tiny. It's tiny compared to what we do.
Oh yeah, compared to some of the blocks. Yeah, it's and it takes 4 bulldozers nudging it, and they're balancing on, it just lifts the bulldozers up, and they're bouncing, and they barely can nudge the limestone block.
I mean, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the video, it's a great video to show, but it's I'm sure people can look it up. Bulldozer moving limestone block, megalithic block.
The impossibility of some of our human technology being able to move it.
Yeah, technology today, and then that block right there is so massive. Yeah, it was somehow being moved. We don't have a crane today. Actually, we have one crane. It's called the Big Boy that supposedly would maybe be able to move that block, but I think that's the stone of Baalbek. But there's some stones that we know that there's no way that we move them with our current technology. How are these people moving this stuff? Yeah,
aliens.
Aliens, yeah, that's what everybody likes to pull, the alien maneuver.
Yeah.
when there's the obvious facts and right in front of your face that there was indeed a race of giant beings that had some type of technology or strength beyond what we have today.
Yeah, amazing. I
Mhm.
mean, we can go into some. Oh yeah, these guys. Yeah, this gives you another example.
Oh yeah, that stone right there is massive,
Right.
massive stone. Like
Talk about
a
the how it was built.
Oh, this is really fascinating. So these blocks are cut to precision sizes, and these blocks are being cut somehow. There is a theory that maybe that some of these blocks have been poured. They were poured into essentially in place in molds. This is like a very not as well balanced theory, but and then they petrified into these stone. But the problem is some stone we know wasn't poured, it was straight up cut into these perfect blocks. And this is an example of one of these obscure cuts that they did in creating these shapes. This is Machu Picchu. Yeah, just phenomenal blocks that like the technology used in cutting this stuff.
Here's another
Um,
example.
Oh, this is very again, Machu Picchu, this is very, very important to note. All megalithic structures here have this pattern that we've noticed. So on the bottom of this block, you'll notice that these gigantic, weirdly shaped cut megalithic blocks, right? And then higher up you get, you notice that the blocks are tiny and really crappily placed, if you will. They're just not
Crap.
very yeah, they're just obscurely placed and there's gaps and all this stuff. Okay, so what's happened is the bottom are built by another race of people with some
Right.
super technology that we don't possess. And then the top part is what we build as humans now.
Yeah,
This
look
is
at
what we can do.
look at the edges of the big stones. I mean, look at the technology that they had to have to put
Mhm,
those stones in there
mhm,
so specifically correct.
mhm.
And the other ones are just jumbled and, like you say, crappily put.
Yeah, and so the thing that's interesting is that this stone, the ages of the blocks that are bigger are always way, way older when they do types of dating methods on stuff that they found in the rocks. But they're always way, way older, significantly older. Now, this persists in every area that you find megalithic structures, like in Egypt, all
Yeah.
the horribly cut blocks or the blocks that are really jagged and not very straight are always on top and younger than the perfectly cut blocks that you see in Egypt, which Egypt is a big misnomer. A lot of people are like, look at the pyramids, they're so amazing. Like the pyramids are not the most amazing thing in Egypt. In fact, there's other things. There's wells in Egypt that are going underground that are way more fascinating than the pyramids that are technically. And so
Actually,
like there's some
there's supposedly huge underground uh, uh, tunnels that connect all the pyramids. There's and a lot of new stuff is coming about the
Mhm,
pyramids that they're
mhm,
used for specific
mhm,
scientific
mhm.
tools to do things. Yeah, to technologically do things. So anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and there's a lot of interesting things like under the Sphinx that they won't let us go into. There's this guy named Brian Forrester, I believe is his name. You can look at a video. He videos under the Sphinx a little bit. But like they won't let us go in under there. There's like whole like caverns and stuff underneath Egypt
Yeah,
that they're just not letting us go into for some reason. But one of the other things is there is massive graves. We have found massive tombs in Egypt,
yeah.
throughout all of Egypt, that they just don't want people to know about.
And they're
But
still
yet they've
finding stuff.
oh yeah, they're still finding things, and
They're
they
still,
dig out. And when they do find massive tombs, ironically, the bodies that are inside these tombs are always missing. They're always gone.
of course,
Um,
they got
and it's just so. Yeah, there's this famous. You can type in like the Black Stone tomb, I believe it is, in Google and take a look at one of them. But the massive, massive tomb. But they're like, oh yeah, this is for a cow, we think. But it's like, well, where was the cow? Why was the lid removed? Where's the cow? What, like they just decided the cow zombie got up and left or what? Like
there's a
who's gonna
whole
take a
layer of
dead cow?
information that there it's private. They don't
Yeah,
let out. So people are always confused.
exactly.
I'm gonna pause
But
real
that
quick.
pattern is everywhere.
Some Nephilim now, baby.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, let's just I mean, the massiveness of this footprint, people don't understand like when they've looked at these giant footprints, there's been a few of them that have been discovered. People were like, "Oh, were they carved into the stone? Did somebody fake carve these footprint depressions into the stone?" They actually were able to cut into one of these giant footprints. They cut into the stone and they could see the compact
Right.
pressure of the sediment when it
Yeah.
was pressed.
They found these everywhere.
Mhm.
Once again, here's another one right there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very giant.
Big
And this
boy
is like
there.
something put a big foot right there. I mean, it's the size of a person.
That's
What I
big.
mean, like, show the next one. What was the next one? Isn't there
Oh
been
yeah.
another book? And
Oh
this one's interesting. I like this one because the girl here has red hair. Looking at this, which red hair actually was indicative of giants, in many cases,
yeah.
including in the Bible when it talks about red-haired giants and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Mm, mm,
And we're gonna get into
mhm.
some. Well, here's some good examples of Nephilim. And here
Go to
we
the
go.
next. Oh yeah, these are
This is
some.
Chang the Giant. Chang the Giant was in the Barnum and
Mhm.
Bailey Circus in London, and he
That
was
guy is
very
so
famous,
massive.
very very famous for a long time. He actually
How tall is he?
retired in 1870 something, and had a little tea shop in the countryside of England. But yeah, he was massive. He was massive, and he was in there
How
for
do
quite
you,
a
do you
while.
know? Do you know how tall that guy is?
I'm not sure, but that's his wife there. That's his wife. And the guy
Mm,
next to him is an average 6 foot tall guy right there.
wow,
Yeah.
dude, that
So
guy is so huge.
absolutely
That guy is,
huge.
but it's fascinating because we don't have people like this big anymore today. So you
Well,
got to wonder, like,
no,
where
I
did they
mean,
go?
there are a few. I mean, here's an example
Mhm,
of
mhm.
turn of the
Yeah, we
century.
showed them, and
Yeah.
they're also in a circus. And then let's go to the next one.
Okay. There we go.
Yeah. Oh, that guy also
Yeah.
another like. But these are people that you just don't see these photos. Like this guy, like who is
Pitching a
he? Like
basketball
nobody
player.
knows about him. Yeah, like massive, massive
Yeah.
dude. Like he probably could like, hit the basketball rim with his head. Um, mm, mm-mm. Dude, yeah, this guy also towering over everybody else. Mhm. He's
Now we're
a
going to get
mhm,
into
mhm.
the shape of heads. The
Okay,
shape
so this is
of head, which
okay.
goes
This
back
is
to Egyptian. Yeah.
Yeah, this is very interesting. So, when you get into Egyptology, if you actually look at the hieroglyphics yourself, you'll notice that there is a difference in these hieroglyphics between people that are being, I don't know, sort of for like projected as giants, and then people that they will tell you in Egyptology, they'll be like, "Oh no, that person was bigger because he just is he's more important. That's why they draw him bigger." Um,
Right.
but yeah, so you'll see this giant theme going throughout Egypt. But another thing that you'll notice is these people. These are a particular type of people that they call coneheads, which
Right.
coneheads is where that movie Coneheads came from. And that bust right there is Nefertiti's. Now, something interesting about Nefertiti's is she had 6 daughters. Her children, by the way, were all named Nefer something. And in
Right.
Egyptology, the word Nefer means beautiful one. Okay. And so there was also Nefer Otep, Nefer Oskep. All these words in Egypt all say Neph, okay? Which is ironic because it sounds a whole lot similar to Nephilim,
Yes.
but that's Nefertiti's. And then there's Nefer, and then Nefer Oskep, right? So the Egyptians called the cone-headed individuals all had the word Neph attached to their name, except for a few that were further down the line, like King Tut. He was subtly cone-headed. He had a little bit of that going on, but he
He was
was
very
so
young.
far down. He was very young. Yeah, he was so far down the lineage that his name was just King Tut or whatever. But I don't know what his first name probably was something Neff. Who knows? But yeah, let's see some other more stuff. Yeah, again, same thing happens throughout Peru. These are the Peruvian skulls. They're the row of the top ones, the original sort of Peruvian skulls, and then there's some skulls there that also have red hair that are again preserved. They're coneheads with red hair, so we see again the connection to giants with red hair. These coneheaded people also had red hair, and so you're
Those
like, oh, where's
cone heads. Yes.
yeah, you'll start to see this similarity thing here. And the interesting thing about these coneheads is a lot of people like to argue these coneheads were from skull binding, which is like a practice that
Right.
people
Right.
did
Right.
back in the day. But you got to think that they did skull binding. Why? To mimic something. It wasn't
Right.
just like a
Exactly.
spontaneous idea, right? So they
Like
were
the
trying to mimic
royalty of the Nefs. Yeah.
Exactly. They're trying to mimic the way these individuals looked. That's where skull binding came from. And it's very apparent in skull binding because when you see a skull bound head, you'll notice that there's fissure lines. And the fissure lines on a normal human they're these little cracks that you see down the skull. The fissure lines are pretty natural looking on skull bounded heads. And you'll notice the fissure lines are probably like they're popped or they're just like a little bit distorted from the skull binding. But in these skulls, the fissure lines are completely different. They are not the same as human fissure lines. They're a different fissure line pattern. They've been genetically tested to not be technically not human, which is where the idea that they're aliens from outer space with Coneheads, and that's where you get the movie Coneheads. They're joking about it because people were DNA testing these and like, well, like this is like not a human. And so these people had twice the brain cavity of a normal human. So twice the brain cavity. So like whatever. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of these skulls actually have a different. They have like a big indented bump right there on the forehead component part, which is very interestingly indicative of their natural state of existing. I guess they just have a bump there that humans don't possess or skull bound heads don't possess at all. So we know that they're different shaped, they're elongated, twice the brain cavity, a bump on the forehead, and different fissure lines and different DNA sequencing. So we know that these skulls are totally not human by some means. And then here's the thing that's important is that wherever these skulls were, like Kukulkan or Quetzalcoatl, or they were all coneheads. They were all cone-headed people. And so all the people that were in charge of everything happened to be these cone-headed individuals.
Isn't that interesting? And they were only half human. I mean, they were human, but they were something else mixed in.
Well, they
Nephilim, yeah.
Exactly. These guys, I think they were less than half, or more than half. I think the half human, half angels were the giants. Right. These guys maybe are like third angel or quarter angel. They're so far down the line that, or maybe they've made it with some other animal mixed hybridization thing that they've gotten this weird deformed head shape or whatever. But they're so far down the line removed, but their brain size, for whatever reason, stayed with the angelic size brain of information, yet their bodies became more normal in size.
Talk to me about the what they found in Mexico. Nephilim that were dinosaurs, and they're literally dinosaurs. Talk about that.
Man, that's a really weird one. But there was some pottery and sculptures found in Mexico of dinosaurs and giants together, and sculptures, pottery, and art, and like thousands of pieces, and they had, and they were having sexual interrelations. Like the giant humanoid beings were having sexual relations with the dinosaurs in the depictions. But this guy from the Smithsonian came to validate. The man that discovered him over in Mexico, he died, and the man from the Smithsonian came to validate the legitimacy of these carvings and structures and stuff. And he was there for approximately, I think, 1 hour to evaluate something in the ballpark of, I think there was like 10,000 different and unique pieces related to this. And within 1 hour, he said, "Oh, they're all fake," and like discredited them all. And they all went and got destroyed or whatever, disappeared. Yeah, disappeared.
Like
after
Smithsonian, yeah.
Yeah, any time the Smithsonian is involved with something, relics go missing. Like it's just like very, very common theme of issues for some reason.
So bizarre.
So yeah, I mean, it's such a weird one.
That could be a whole episode in itself. I mean, the stuff they found down there. Wow.
Yeah.
Let's talk about these guys.
Okay, so this is great because the if you notice, that's from National Geographic. No, go back. Go back to that one. That one was great. This is fascinating. So this is from National Geographic's website, actually, by the way. And it's very, very important to understand this because they're admitting to the fact that giants exist. Now, what I want you to point out is they've given them a name recently, okay? They've recently been like, okay, guys, yeah, giants existed. They call them Denisovans, or Denisovans or Denisovans. Like it's pronounced both ways. I don't know.
Sounds Irish.
Anyways, yeah. So the Neanderthal somehow made it with the Denisovan and it created the Homo horribilis or whatever, made up thing they want to believe. And so that's their theory. But you know what's really fascinating about this is right there, that yellow link that says Denisovan is missing the skull. And you want to know why it's missing the skull? They don't want people to really see it, even though they know that it's there and they know that the Denisovans are real, and they don't want to show you on this graph what the missing Denisovan skull looks like, because go ahead and show that other image you were just looking at.
Oh yeah, that's
because the skull that they found is that, and it is twice the size of a normal skull, and it would make you question reality when you see that mixed in with the other skulls, and you're like, oh, that giant freaking skull mated with that other normal size skull and produced something else normal size. You're like, it just is illogical. Like the skull that they are admitting to was supposedly around close to, I believe it was 14 feet or 15 feet in height, that
Wow.
they're like, oh yeah, they exist. Denisovans are existing now. We're admitting to it. Go ahead and show the tooth. They found finger bone of one that was, I believe was also 15 feet tall or 16 feet. And then this is a tooth of somebody that is 18 feet tall. Okay. Denisovan tooth. Type it in. Type it into Google, anybody. Just like go like Denisovan tooth. Okay. 18-foot tall is what they're projecting this molar from this humanoid person should have been. Like there is no getting around this. Like that is a massive tooth. Like the
you have to be a little worried about, because like for example, like Lucy, the evolutionary iconic
oh my God.
example of one of the few fake examples of macro evolution. Lucy turned out to be a pig bone that they built this whole thing around. But I mean,
yeah, well, I don't know if that's true, but I just know that the Lucy skeleton's pretty terrible. So when you look at it,
yeah, the Nebraska man, all this stuff was really terrible. But anyway, yeah, that was actually from a human, some kind of human-like creature. Yeah,
it's massive and it's hard to deny. So.
Dear. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Again, so that shows a good example of the cone-headed individuals,
right,
from Egyptology, next to some normal individual. She does have some little thing coming off of her head there, but you can see that there's clearly a difference in their head shape. Like it's very obviously different in their head shape.
Oh yeah, they don't have like a horn coming in.
Yeah, some little horn thing coming over her head. All right, so let's see the next one.
All right, I think that's it actually. Oh yeah. Okay, nice. So let's talk about when a Nephilim dies.
Okay, so there's some interesting stuff that the origin of demons. Okay. There's some stuff I was reading recently about like the name of Lucifer, and I was checking out some stuff about who he really is. But did you know that in the Book of Enoch, it actually refers to this one of the angels that came down and led humanity astray? His name is Godriel. And I believe that it says that Godriel is he's the one that led Eve astray. So I don't know if Godriel is also Lucifer, is like maybe his direct name.
I mean, he has many names, Horus,
yeah.
I mean, Osiris, I mean, many different representations of it. It's always the same, father of lies.
Yeah, and so one of the things is like, when Lucifer said, "I will be like God," right? And so I wondered, yeah. So I wonder if I've always wondered and debated. I'm doing some research to figure out this answer a little bit more further. But when Lucifer says, "I will be like God," what I think he might have been implying was that I will create like God creates. And by that, what I think he meant was, I will distort God's creation into my creation, i.e., creating the
That's a really
Nephilim.
good point, because he cannot create things. All he can do
Yeah,
is
yeah,
mock,
yeah. No.
and that's, I think, that makes him so furious. All he can do is mock God's creation. That's why he's only be able to distort God's creation and not create anything new ever. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's a really huge bone of contention too.
Well, I mean, he can't manifest things out of reality. So
Right.
like anything that he's making is just a remake of what God made.
Right. Exactly right.
So yeah, so it's very fascinating though, because I think he might have been, when he was saying I will be like God, essentially he was making that. And it's very fascinating when it comes to artists, like, because I'm also an artist, and so like we draw creatures as artists, and a lot of times it's like there's this weird innate nature inside of you that, to like, you want to draw dragons as a kid or as an artist. Like everybody wants to draw dragons, and you're like, well, why do we want to draw dragons? Like, is that like demonically influenced in us in some way to want to draw dragons? I wonder, because it's interesting that that's like the desire, the natural desire, but like also a lot of people, we want to draw things that don't exist. And so like, because we're like, oh, life has already existed and it's, boring, or we can see it already this way, right? And so I think it's in the same manner as what Lucifer basically was like, oh, you made a goat and you made a man. Well, how about this? Goat man. Oh,
Yeah, but
bam. He's so much better, is like
I
his
understand
thought,
what you're saying. But an artist, I mean, has a free will, and the idea to create something
Mhm,
new is
mhm,
probably ever present in the desire of an artist. Because you don't want to,
mhm,
and that's all we have, is because everything's been done. But as an artist, it's your particular bent that makes it unique. And so I don't discount the fact that we want to create things that are different and new, and
mhm.
but yeah, I think
I
that,
just think that I just think that's interesting, because I think that it's kind of what Lucifer was essentially doing when he was creating the Nephilim. I think he was just like, oh,
besides trying to corrupt a bloodline, yeah, which
yeah,
is
yeah, of course.
the
It's
real reason it all
mm,
happened.
mm,
Let's talk
yeah.
about something really interesting that happened recently. I don't know
Mhm.
if you want to talk about it, but remember we were talking recently, and you suddenly said that you were looking around your place and you were.
Oh, I don't want to talk about that story yet.
Oh, you don't want to talk about. Okay, we'll do that on a
That
whole.
story's
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
well, yeah, we'll have to do that one on another video.
that'll be a whole nother.
But but it's it's related to that kind of things, but like art and creation and stuff. But yeah, I think I don't know, I think that this whole Nephilim thing though, it stems from selfishness of creating things in a lot of way, and pride of being, I don't know, whatever Lucifer was wanting to create essentially. And
Crassly.
hmm, yeah, and that just kind of like branched. I think that just kind of kept continuing to branch out, and I think that I wonder if the fall of Lucifer happened in the moment when he started doing this, or or before. I wonder what the time frame, because the Bible
Yeah,
doesn't actually tell us much about that.
I think that it's more important for us to not focus on the details of Lucifer as much as to focus on the details of
Mhm.
living king. You know what I'm saying?
True, of
Um,
course, of course.
yeah, I mean,
Oh,
I
but
grew up. My mother taught Bible school
mhm,
for 60
mhm,
years, and I grew up in a very Christian household. And I was just fascinated by everything. But she always told me, you don't want to focus on the dark. You don't want to focus on that. It's all going to be gone someday. I mean, literally. And it really, in my adult life, I was shown at one point. I look around me and all these goth
mhm,
people and all this stuff, and I was ooh, and all this Halloween and ooh, all the creepy stuff. And it's one day God just showed me it's all going to be gone, and you're not
mhm,
even going to remember it, because it's going to
mhm,
be in eternity where everything is perfect and there's nothing. All that gothy stuff is going to be gone, and you're not even going to remember it. It's like it's a passing thing. It's just like our life is temporal, and
mhm,
having a temporal mind, it's hard to understand the eternity. Eternity is like that's a concept that you could barely grasp. you know. But it's transitional. It's something that's not going to hang around. So I mean, I grew up on the Addams Family. I mean, I love decay. I love all that stuff. I was a mortician. You know, I appreciate all that stuff. But there's a line, and it's not gonna be forever. You know,
For
so that's
sure.
comforting to a certain degree. But
Oh, I
yes,
remember something you were going to mention about the creation of the Nephilim and the demons, and now how
oh well,
this
just
works.
I mean, what
Now,
happens
there's
when a Nephilim dies?
yeah. So it says this in the book of Enoch. It says that because you are not fully flesh and because you are not fully spirit, that when your body dies, your spirit will forever remain on the earth and be referred to as an evil spirit.
Right.
So
I.e.
it
demon.
makes, i.e. demon, yeah, demons are what they are. And now it's very fascinating because my theory on this, um again, a thought that I'm trying to like figure out is, are all demons, like there's the fallen angels and then there's these beings that are half angel humans that have lost their body, that are just stuck here on earth realm, because essentially there you're like a three-part being. Okay, so like you have your body, and then you have your soul, which is outside of time realm in the ethereal realm, essentially where God's at right now, and then you have your spirit, or like your consciousness.
Right.
And right now your consciousness is in your body, but when you die, it's going to go through your brain almost like some portal, and then teleport you outside of the realm of time, and then you're going to go into your soul in this other realm outside of time.
Right.
Right. And so, well, these beings are born body and soul and spirit all in one.
Right.
It's just because you're not fully flesh, you're not fully spirit, that when your body dies, your spirit will forever remain on the earth. And so, it's very fascinating. So like I used to have this thought that anytime you hear of ghosts, or anytime you hear of like, you know, like a leprechaun or your dead grandmother, or anytime you see something fly
Fairy.
across the room or things move,
Yeah.
and in my opinion, even Bigfoot I think falls into this category in my opinion. But yeah, I think, yeah. And then I think all of these things are just, people think they're real because they really saw something, but
Right.
what they don't realize is like what they're seeing is something spiritual, and they can't
Absolutely.
quite process that the physical eye just witnessed what was once a physical being has lost its body, and it's making some type of manifestation into a physical
Exactly.
sense. And
Exactly
so it's
right.
just like appearing like almost like a glitch in the matrix, and they're seeing this ghost figure for a minute, or they're seeing this shadow being in the world just like moving, and they're usually doing nonsensical things. It's not like whenever people see these things, they're just like walking through the woods, or
Right.
standing over in the corner, or knocking your bookshelf over,
Right.
knocking something off your bookshelf, or not, or stacking chairs. They're
Right.
usually doing like nonsensical things, and you're like, well, why would a ghost be sitting here trying to open all the doors and cupboards in your house? Like what's the point? Well, it's not really like a ghost, and it's
Exactly
more
right.
rather a
It's
demon
not a
that
dead.
lost. Yeah, it's not a dead person. It's a demon
Right.
that lost its physical body, and so it's bored out of its mind.
That's
Imagine
the
if
core.
you Yeah. Well, imagine if you were to die and you lost your physical body. All you are now is constantly hungry. You're constantly invisible, yet you live in this visible world, and you are just and all you can do is watch. All you can do is watch. And so you're just like bored out of your mind. Like, what are you going to do? Start opening doors and then mess with people, because you're just like what else can I do?
Differentiate that from being a human person that dies as opposed to a demon, because humans don't hang out and haunt that house. They don't. Oh, haunt that house.
Oh,
You know. Yeah.
no,
So
no. And
you're
see the
going somewhere.
See, the
The
difference
demons
is, well,
are.
Jesus says that. Jesus
Yeah.
says in the Bible, it's appointed that every man will die and then comes judgment,
Right.
right? And so humans, we don't die and become ghosts. Like, we die and the end, that's it. But
But
Nephilim die.
that's
Yeah,
the core of the fairy tales of the paranormal investigators. Well, these people have unfinished business, so they're
yeah, no.
haunting this thing, and that's just part of the fabric of lives that's been sown for thousands of years. You know, that's the
Yeah.
thing about all the mythological stuff, all the layers and layers and layers and layers of nonsense. that's very craftily sewn together. Oh, this goes back before Christianity. Like, you can't predate the creator, baby. But yeah, I mean, so it's very thick, but yeah, that's the core of the deception of people who investigate ghosts, paranormal
Yeah, they,
investigation.
they they believe it's like beings that have like, and what it is the reality is there was a Nephilim spirit or a demon that's talking to the Nephilim, like a legit demon that was like invested in this human, right? And then the human died, and then this demon is left, and he's bored, and he's like, well, I remember what Grandma Susie's favorite,
Well, yeah, of course.
handkerchief was. She
That's right.
always would play with that handkerchief. So the demon or the Nephilim is going to go mess with that handkerchief and then move it and somehow use all of his strength and his energy to somehow move the handkerchief. And you're going to walk into the room. You'll be like, Grandma Susie's handkerchief just appears on the counter every time. Grandma Susie must be here. And then what you're going to do is you're going to give effort. Yeah, yeah. You're going to give effort and thought and energy and worship to dead Grandma Susie that you think is dead
Right.
Grandma Susie, when the reality is it's just this invisible like Nephilim that has lost
Right.
its body, and it just wants some attention and validity that he's real because he's been invisible for
Goes a
most of
little
his
deeper
life.
than that, though, because it underlines what it says in Scripture. It underlines it. It undermines it. Okay, I say
Yeah.
this all the time. It's like, well, I went to that
Mhm.
séance and I heard Aunt Millie's voice, and I heard her little dog barking. I could smell her perfume. It must be her. And these are entities that have been around forever. They know exactly what it's going to take to suck
Oh
you
yeah.
in. Yeah. So yeah, I say that all the time. Though. But
Yeah,
yeah.
no,
So
and so it's a deception, and they're completely deceiving people constantly, and they're bored out of their mind. They have nothing else to do, and then it's like, they're just like, okay, yeah, let's just mess with these humans because why not?
well, there
Because
were times in the Bible when Jesus came to people who were demoniacs or demoniacs, and were possessed, and they looked at him and they said, "It's not our time yet. Are you here to send us away? It's not our time yet. Send us into this herd of pigs." And
oh
he
yeah, that was
did.
Legion. That was
Right.
Legion.
Exactly.
And it's very interesting about Legion. I mean, you know what? Here I'll talk a little bit about demons and how they move. Possibly, I mean, it's kind of one of my theories here out there. But the like demons, basically, they move by touch. Okay, they move by touch, and they can possess objects, but they move mostly by you have to. I don't think they can walk around necessarily like we walk around in the world. I think they see points of light, and they can somehow move from point to point to point. And I think when somebody and I think it's dangerous for them to just jump from point to point. I think that's kind of dangerous for them. I think
Right.
because if they jump into somebody that has Jesus in them or has the spirit in them, like
That's it, baby.
they'll just get sent to the abyss or whatever. And so like they're very cautious of who they jump into, I think. But I think once they find a safe person that does not know the authority of Christ, that they can jump into, then they all kind of huddle into that person, right? And so then you get these individuals like Legion that was in the man that
Yeah.
Jesus came across who had multiple demons, because the
Right.
multiple demons will congregate into one person. And you'll see these sort of problems, like one person starts to do some bad stuff, and then all of a sudden like a flood of bad things they'll start doing, and you're like, man, they just started with one thing, and then boom. Well, it's like demonic influence and demonic oppression, because one other demon told his other demon buddies, hey, this guy doesn't know the authority of Christ, so we can just do whatever we want to him. Come on over here, join my group of possessing this one dude, right?
Yeah.
And so like Legion, he gets full of all these demons, and then Jesus is like, they said, Jesus, it's not our time yet, because they knew that there was a end of time where
They,
they will be going to the abyss or going to the lake of fire, and they know that that's coming,
have
and
you
they
come to
know.
torment us before our time? Yeah.
Yeah, and so and it's interesting because Jesus has grace on them, and he casts them into the pigs, and the pigs run off the cliff and kill themselves.
Right.
Now you got to wonder, like, why didn't he cast them into some rocks? Why didn't he just tell them you're free to move? You know what I mean? Like, why don't you just walk away, leave? Why didn't they take off the minute they saw him? Be like, oh guys, let's get out of here.
Right.
So there is some kind of tethered connection that demons possess when they go into a person, or when they go into an entity, or when they go into some type of object or something. There's some type of tethered connection that they
I don't think they
possess.
possess an object. I think they're attached to an object. I think that objects that are used in rituals are normal. That's what usually they're attached to. Like, for example, crystal balls or even tarot cards or crystals or something like that. That's why crystals are so prolific in the New Age movement. And oh, I'm wearing a crystal, and literally, like you
Oh
say, they're
yeah.
around these demons in this thing if they're
Oh
attached to
yeah.
it.
Yeah, and so demons can go into these objects into people, and then when the person dies, I think demons have or the subject, when the human dies or the animal dies, the thing that they're attached to, I think it gives them like a moment of free movement or something, or maybe they can hang on to the soul as it's
Well, they have to
exiting
go
Earth.
somewhere. They have to go
Yeah,
somewhere.
they kind of hang on and like can kind of like go outside of wherever, which is
Well,
why I think the pigs committed suicide.
it even
Um,
talks about that in scripture where they go into the desolate areas, like just in the desert where they looking for their next
yeah,
body. Yeah, fascinating stuff.
yeah.
I just think it's important to point out that it's very important to not focus so much on demons. I mean, it's really interesting too because right now it's like the eternity is pressing in right now. So you're getting all this movement right now. There's so much movement going on right now, and you can see it in the news. You can see it in everywhere. It's stirring the whole supernatural world. It's just like a blender going on right now. There's pressure, and that's what it is. Is eternity is pressing in, and they have very little time, so they got to do a lot of stuff. They're very
Yeah.
busy. So you're
You
seeing
know,
it. People think, oh, well, whatever, blah, 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 the little devil with the pitchfork and that. No, no, no. The devil is a real person. He's a real person. He's not omnipresent. He goes and visits whoever is going to cause the most damage, like the people, the Supreme Court, or the heads of states, or presidents, or the Vatican, or whatever he can do the most damage is where he's going to literally personally visit. But all his entities that work for him, all the demons that are under him, they do the same thing, but on different levels. But once again, you know what? I can't tell you how important it is to get the upload every day of the Bible, to jump into scripture and get some upload, baby. That's how God speaks to you. People go, oh, I want a sign. I want a sign. I pray for a sign. Well, why would you do that? The Bible is your love letter, man. This is how God speaks to you. He can do it in a million different ways. But you got to pick up that Bible every day, man, and get some upload, baby, and just say, this is what I do. I pick up my Bible. Okay, here I am. Holy Spirit, just open the eyes of my heart. Show me some stuff. And every time it blows my mind. It blows my mind. It's funny because I'm reading, I'm at the same time I'm reading the book of Jasher. And this is one of those books like Enoch that is mentioned in the Bible and tells kind of the whole story of what's going on. In scripture, what you most need to know is there. This is really all you need to know for your eternal salvation. But in Jasher and these other accompanying books, it gives the whole picture, which is very interesting. I mean, it's blowing my mind. I'm tripping out. I'm having a blast, going through it. And it's funny because I've just been in the Old Testament, so it just fleshed it out, man. And just like, it's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It gives so much detail. It's so fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It's so good. It's so good. So
These are ancient books, ancient texts that if people really are like, contemplating and want to know the beginning of the earth and the beginning of the world, like just read some of the ancient texts that are there. Study the stuff that we already have found. Like, you know what I mean? Like this information's out there. Like people just got to look.
Well, I mean, there's a big disinformation campaign to make you not look at the very things that are the most important. I mean, that's the core
Oh yeah.
misdirection of the enemy. It's like, oh no, the Bhagavad Gita or whatever, and a million different other, iconic representations of all the different layers of fabric of lies. It's all out there, trying to just misdirection you. So,
yeah.
But the subject of giants is it's going to be more and more prevalent because some say that they're going to be coming back. Like when we talked before about the stasis chambers that are holding some of these actual Nephilim, they've been asleep for 30,000 years and they're not dead.
See, I don't know if See, I don't know. I don't know if they can just be asleep like that. I feel like that might be like something that's a little far fetched for me to believe. Like they've got to be, they're dead. They're dead, but they can still pull their genetics from them. And so my thought is
Okay.
this though, because and the reason why is because the Bible specifically says this actually, that their days will only be 120 years. Now, if you know that verse, there's this verse that a lot of people might commonly misread. Okay, it literally says there were giants in the end in those days and thereafter. And then it says, and then their day, and it says, and then God said, my spirit will not reside with man forever, for man is mortal. So their days will only be 120. And then it continues to talk about giants shortly thereafter. We're talking about the Nephilim. And then it says, so that verse right there in Genesis 6 or whatever, that verse is fascinating because people think it's talking about giants, and then it talks about the age of man, and then it talks about giants. No,
Yeah.
the whole thing is talking about giants. It's not going
Wow.
Nephilim, man, Nephilim. It's Nephilim, Nephilim, Nephilim. And when you reread it
Yeah,
with that
because Genesis,
understanding,
I mean, people were living 900 years back then.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
no,
but
all those people.
yeah, but when you read it with the understanding of that whole verse is pertaining to Nephilim, what you
Right.
realize is it says, "My spirit, which is the sons of God, which is the Nephilim, will not reside in man," meaning the spirit and man union will not reside together, meaning they won't become immortal. Okay,
Right.
because their spirits are immortal, but your man body is not. So basically, that verse is saying that my spirit will not make man immortal. Instead, their age will only be 120 years.
Right.
So
There's cool
so
rules like
he's literally saying the Nephilim will only live to be 120, is what he's
I love
saying.
how God designs these certain rules into creation. Like, for example, when we were talking about how these they try to mix these species, and they
Mhm.
get it going, and it's being when it's born, but it always dies just a little bit after it's born. It just won't live.
Yep, yep.
And
Mhm.
I love the it's kind of like a divine rules in the genetic code.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's interesting, the genetic mixing of animals like the tiger and the lion, which creates the liger, which, if you guys know, the liger is a genetic, it's a giant. It's a giant, like the liger mix of a tiger and a lion is huge. It's twice the size of both tiger or lion. Like like Google liger size, like it will blow your way. But like it's interesting that we see, like, when you mix similar genetic species, the result is gigantism, which is kind of like, ah, that's interesting. When you mix humans and angels, the result I've heard was gigantism. Hmm. Wonder why that exists. I don't know, but it's a weird thing.
talk about the
Hmm.
dinosaurs.
Oh man, I mean, the dinosaurs. That's like
I
a
mean, we were talking about this,
whole.
how some people say that the carnivorous dinosaurs were the screwing around with the genetics of the regular dinosaurs by fallen angels.
So
Yeah,
I've heard that theory.
yeah,
I don't. There is no
who knows?
substantiated evidence for that theory, but I mean, like, it's interesting. But there's like people have like tried to say, oh yeah, the carnivorous ones, but the truth is this: like, look at the skeleton of a killer whale. Okay,
Right,
it's got some crazy teeth. It looks like the teeth on a T-Rex, and
right,
you would assume that the killer whale knows how to eat a man alive, and the killer whale's called the killer whale. They'd probably like see a human and rip them apart, right? Okay, no, killer whales actually save humans from sharks. There's been
yeah,
multiple situations where people have gone in the water with orcas, and they're so intelligent that they
right,
know not to eat humans. They literally know not to eat humans. And when an orca or a killer whale kills someone, a human, it's usually because they're playing with them, and it's like
right.
by accident drowning, accidental drowning. And so that's what it's fascinating. So like, to assume that the T-Rex or the other dinosaurs that are also ferocious looking, like they're meat eater monsters, wouldn't possibly also possess the kind nature that the killer whale orcas have is kind of silly, because like I think T-Rexes probably knew, they probably saw a human and were like, oh yeah, let's not eat him. Like they probably were like, yeah, we're not gonna eat that. we're gonna eat that. They probably don't taste good or whatever. And so there's a possibility that the dinosaurs just knew not to eat people. There's a possibility that they knew that, they just weren't for our flavor. There's also a spot in the Bible that talks about them. They said, "Can you not go down to the place where the Leviathans are at?" Now,
Right.
it's interesting. It's saying like there's a place where they all hung out. And so it's kind of like, oh, well, the Leviathans, which is probably a crocodile is what it's referring to, because it says you can pull one out with a hook. And so the Leviathan is like probably connected to other dinosaurs. Maybe dinosaurs just hung out in places where people just are like, oh yeah, don't go over there, there's a bunch of raptors that hang out over there, they'll try to eat you or something. You know what I mean? Like, we don't really know. And then the other component to that is that, not only the Bible also talks about a behemoth, which it perfectly describes a brachiosaurus, by the way, like to the T. Long neck, taller than the cedar trees. Its steps are like thunder. No spear can pierce its hide. It describes a brachiosaurus like to the T, except for one thing. It says that smoke and fire, or smoke billows from its nose and fire comes from its mouth, or something like that. And so we get the idea, and we're like, what is this? A fire breathing dragon?
Well, I mean,
But
there is reference to breeding dragons.
yeah, but that's the reference. Is that the behemoth statement? And it sounds like a brachiosaurus that breathes fire. And then we were like, oh, that's really strange. But did you know something interesting about the brachiosaurus? The brachiosaurus has this big bump on its nose, this big bump
Right.
part on its nose. It has two gland pockets inside of that big bump, and two extra gland cavities that we don't know what they're for. Like skulls have cavities that are like the same for your eye sockets. The brachiosaurus has two extra gland cavities. We don't know what were in those glands. And there is chemicals that we know that animals can produce, that if an animal was to produce these two chemicals in one thing and they were to mix, it could essentially make fire.
Well,
So
even
there
in
is
there's a point where one of them comes really close to somebody and throws snot all over him. Oh,
yeah, well, there's a beetle that has this acid that it excretes out of its
right,
kneecaps, technically, and it shoots this acid out that
right.
will just melt stuff. Okay, but it's like inside the beetle, somehow it's not eating eating the beetle. But like, it's fascinating the type of stuff. So we just don't know. The Brachiosaurus could very well been of what we deemed a fire breathing dragon, essentially. But we just don't know. We just don't know because.
That's another point about
But
this.
humans and dinosaurs did live together.
Right.
Sorry, I had to throw that in there. And you know that that's true because you can actually look at the side of the Aztec temple, and there is a Stegosaurus on the side of the Aztec temple. And you're like, well, why would they draw a Stegosaurus like totally like just with all the other animals, unless they knew what a freaking Stegosaurus looked like,
Exactly.
unless they were like, oh, this creature is legit. And then we have pottery and we have other dinosaur sculptures and stuff that we have found that is all related to the dinosaurs and humans existing together. And we even have in Dinosaur Valley dinosaur and human footprints in the same bedrock, which means they had to be
Right.
formed within the same summer
I've seen
that
those.
mud was soft. We have
Fascinating.
footprints where humans walked inside of the dinosaur footprint. So it almost looks like a footprint was walking, dinosaur walked, and some kid came by and was like, I'm a dinosaur, and stepped inside of the footprints. And it's fascinating to be like, okay, yeah, this is yeah, we're gonna write this one off. This is just a weird one. Like, anyways.
I think a really cool aspect to all this is the how incredible is the mind of the creator.
Mhm.
I mean, just you can't even fathom it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just so huge. It's so huge. And we don't question the creator. Why did you create this? Why did you do that? No, you're a little tiny little mind. You're trying to the infinite. You put your finiteness. That doesn't ever never works that way. But
No.
it's miraculous. It's just like it's incredible. I mean, I get so blown away every day by just thinking about the different types of even the animals that we're very familiar with. I mean, mind blowing, yeah. I love it.
I listened to a guy that was like talking about, Adam naming all the animals, and then I love the part that he put where he was like, when he got to the fly, he's like, of all the things that can fly, fly got the name. It's just like so funny. There's so many animals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting, like dinosaurs, I think we hunted them to the point of extinction, I think is what really happened. I think all those stories about dragons, they were just like, oh yeah, I killed one of those giant creatures that had wings. Oh, you did? Oh, I killed one of them giant creatures that had a big long neck. And then somebody's like, oh, I killed one of them giant creatures that had wings and a big long neck. And it's just like exaggerated variations. Yeah, exaggerated variations of dinosaur hunting that we just kept hunting and to the point of extinction. And another thing I think is, well, another thing I think is that they're technically megafauna is what they fall into the category of, right? And so maybe they were just a really good meat source for food that the giants ate, and the giants ate them all the way to the point of extinction. And then once they couldn't eat the giants, they ran out of eating all the dinosaurs. They were like, oh, what else are we going to eat? I guess the next best thing is humans. Let's eat the humans. And so that's where the whole
many stories about them being cannibals. I mean,
about
like we.
Wait, say that again. Your phone cut, or the audio cut out.
Of giants eating humans, being cannibals to a certain degree. Yeah. I mean, they go back to Indians too, yeah, and all over the place, yeah. So,
but it's interesting because it's like we have the megafauna have all but gone extinct in certain regions. Like in North America, I think the moose is the only megafauna that exists that's left here, and so that's just because the something or someone or giants ate all the megafauna to the point where there was just no more. And so, and they did it everywhere else except for in Africa where the megafauna still exists. So I'm guessing giants probably just didn't inhabit. The Nephilim just didn't want to go over into Africa too much because it was like too far, too deserty. They're like, forget it. So otherwise they would have ate all the elephants.
Lazy. No, I think that there's some point probably they could have been some kind of celestial event where something fell and destroyed some of the dinosaurs. Who knows? Who knows? But that's a very, very interesting point you made.
Yeah. So
fascinating stuff. There's a bunch of other stuff which we didn't upload, which we're going to go in. We're probably going to do part 3. But we have some really interesting shows coming up. We're going to do one on pharmakia, which covers so much, not only in the drug world, but in the witchcraft world, in the sorcery world. And I mean, I grew up in the Haight-Ashbury, so I saw a whole level of that there. And but we're going to do that. That's coming up pretty soon. Also, too funny. Hey, good night, everyone. Thank you so much, you guys. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Giants with Brian Sadler, baby. And we will talk to you guys soon. You have a great day. God bless you guys. Yeah.